Getting rid of Hezbollah is going to be the biggest favor for the Lebanese before it is a favor for the Israelis themselves. The Lebanese themselves, they suffer from this militia in the last few decades. This militia was choosing the government they want, assassinating anyone who does not obey to them. They used to cooperate with radicals, including Al-Qaeda and ISIS. So Hezbollah, Iran, and the rest of the proxies, they were a threat to the world. And I think that it has to have united front against these militias. For this reason, yes, the war in Lebanon has to get rid of Hezbollah, whatever the price, because if we pay the price once, better than we pay it again and again every 10 years or every few years.
My guest today is Ghassan Ibrahim. He's the founder of Global Arab Network. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Ghassan, when Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah was killed last month, a surprising thing happened on the streets of Syria. Some Syrians in Idlib and Aleppo took to the streets to celebrate, handing out sweets and raising banners calling for Bashar al-Assad to be next. Why were they celebrating the death of Nasrallah?
It was a big happiness for everyone has witnessed his Hassan Nasrallah crime. Hezbollah occupied Syria during the Civil War with support with the Revolutionary Guard from Iran. They were very sectarian. They committed very ugly crime, probably if not like ISIS, probably even worse. So obviously, many Syrian, many Arab people from the Middle East, they were extremely happy to hear that news. They wasn't expecting such a big, surprise to happen. Absolutely many people in the Middle East felt closer to Israel when such thing happened. They felt that Israel suddenly is doing a job on their behalf, protecting the region from such a radical group. We believe that many Arab and Israeli share the same goal in terms of fighting these radicals, whether they are closer to Muslim Brotherhood like Hamas or closer to Iranian militia like Hezbollah, Houthi in Yemen, and as well the Hashd al-Sha'bi in Iraq. So I think it was a big victory for both nations, the Israeli and the Arab.
You mentioned Hezbollah's involvement in the Syrian Civil War. Can you give us more details about that?
Probably the civil war, when it started in Syria, wouldn't go such bloody war and very destructive and such hatred without the involvement of Hezbollah. Hezbollah got involved from the day one, tried to push toward escalation rather than finding compromise between the Syrians themselves. The Syrians themselves, they don't have a sectarian aspect in their life. They don't believe in sectarianism. But when Hezbollah got involved, we witnessed that as well some radical from different backgrounds appeared. That pushed the war from basic demand of improving the life of the Syrian, improving the political scene in Syria, toward hatred, sectarianism, religious war, radical war, and spread all these things in the Syrian society, push the war to become longer and heavier on the Syrian, and made the Syrian have around 10 million of the Syrian, they become a refugee, around 1 million or so being killed in very brutal way. Hezbollah sometimes buried some people alive, sometimes slaughter people like ISIS done. So Hezbollah left no room for compromise with the Syrian majority of the Syrian, whether they are the opposition or within the society close to opposition or even loyal to the government. Many of the Syrians feel that Hezbollah made Syria another radical place where Syria used to be tolerance within the people themselves.
When we're talking about Hezbollah's involvement in Syria, it's impossible not to talk about Iran's embedment within the country. Talk to us about the key geographical role that Syria plays in Iran's terror activities in the region, specifically when it comes to the transfer of weapons between the IRGC and Hezbollah.
Iran was keen on creating a road transport from Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, not just to fight with Israel, but as well to occupy these countries. The Iranian publicly they were speaking, we control 4 or 5 capitals in the Middle East. So Iran is a joint enemy for the both people in the region, Israeli and Arab. We have to say it clearly. If you ask any normal people, who's your main enemy in the region, they will say it clearly, it's Iran. Due to that, Iran tried, using militias, non-Arab, imported them from abroad. Some of them from Afghani, some of them Iraqi, very religious, very radicals, or from Hezbollah. As well, Hezbollah was a key player in Yemen. He trained Houthi. Houthi, they used to be just like a primitive tribe in the mountains. They are not well equipped, not trained militarily. Mainly their weapon was a Kalashnikov and a couple of basic individual arms. Now they become like a big radical group that has a weapons, can somehow stop the international trade and affect the movement in the Red Sea. So when we are talking about Iran, it always used to try to link these squares. They always used to say something, وحدة الساحات, which means that all these militias that are united, when there is any, threat on Iran, can use them all at once. But with time, we realized that Iran is much weaker than that. It pushed Hamas in the war to sabotage any grand peace deal in the region, to create hatred and create kind of a crack in the road towards the peace. So we notice after Hamas is almost disappearing now, that Hezbollah in the road in the same way is going to end up in the same way, probably Houthi in the same way. So Iran is becoming day on day losing not just connection on the ground, but a connection within these militias. These militias is much weaker. They lost their prestige, if I can use this word. They were trying to promote themselves as they are the superior power on the region. Now they are much weaker, and I hope one day we will celebrate the last militia in the region.
I want to get your assessment and your take on Israel's operation in southern Lebanon and the rest of Lebanon, of course, against Hezbollah and dismantling Hezbollah. Realistically, do you think that is possible?
Absolutely, it is possible. When we noticed that the war started in Bejer's bomb and made around between 5,000 to 10,000 member of the militia out of the service, when we noticed that the main leaders of this militia disappeared, we noticed that the morale of this militia, it's become much, much weaker. And the language they are speaking, they start saying, oh, please, let us obey to the international law and stop the war. They've been given a lot of notice. Last year, every month, one envoy from EU, from different countries, they were coming to Hezbollah and trying to convince him not to escalate the war. Now they are trying to just stop the war because they want to save this militia. And I believe now it's important that this war to continue to end the last member of this militia, because they are a threat, not just to the region, but the whole world. These guys, they have been working all their life in smuggling weapons, drugs, anything outside of the law. They were a state inside of state.
You mentioned the potential that this war can have, as horrific as it is having an effect on the Lebanese people who have been essentially held hostage by Hezbollah. Is this an opportunity for the Lebanese people to rise up against this Iranian proxy terror group? And in your eyes, will they seize this opportunity?
I noticed some political figures in Lebanon start meeting, start talking, probably not publicly enough because they still fear from Hezbollah. Still Hezbollah, it's a armed militia. All their members are armed. They are nothing to do with politics. They are not normal like any normal political party. This is a total a radical militia. So the Lebanese themselves, I noticed many of the politicians, they start talking about, both Hezbollah, the future of Lebanon after getting rid of this militia. Yes, they are talking about it. They are connecting with the Western countries to see what they can do once the war finishes. And as well, internally, there is a lot of talk happening. And many of them, they understand now it's in their favor. This is why they are silent. They can't say more than that. They have to be silent, still afraid from Hezbollah. Hezbollah, as I mentioned, assassinated many Lebanese leaders, including Rafi al-Hariri, the prime minister, the one who rebuilt Lebanon. They assassinated him because simply did not obey to their agenda. For this reason, yes, the Lebanese people communicating internally and as well in the region as well, they're connecting with the rest of the Arab countries and as well internationally to talk about what can be what the best future for Lebanon. And we have to make it clear. Good future for Lebanon is good future for the Middle East. Hezbollah, the civil war in Lebanon was the core crisis, cracked the region. Now, if we manage to mend that crisis, get rid of the radicals, and put the Lebanese in the path of re-establishing and regaining their state to become, as it used to be, an example of civilization in Lebanon, not Iranian proxy leading the country. A radical regime is making the Iranians themselves suffering. We have to bear in mind as well the Iranian people. They did not choose this regime. This regime came and hijacked of revolution happening in Iran and imposed on the Iranians themselves. So majority of the Iranian people are normal people like the rest of the Middle East or the wider world. They are not supporting such a regime. This regime is using its power, forcing the people to obey. And we noticed a couple of times have been some civil like revolution, peaceful revolution in Iran. They hit them with fire. They did not give them any chance. We have to think about that Iran has to become normal state, but obviously not with such radical leaders. The Iranian people, they have to choose a normal state for them to become a member of the Middle East, the wider Middle East, and to become a normal state. For sure, I believe Iranian regime is going to pay the price, whether in Lebanon or in Yemen or in Iraq or inside Iran. And probably getting rid of the nuclear power from these radicals in Tehran is very, very essential, not just for Israel, but for every single member of the Arab society that are suffering from the power that Iran has. And let's put the diplomatic words aside. Yes, there is a lot of Arab countries talking to Iran, but they had to talk to Iran because they want peace and stability. But Iran does not want peace and stability. Iran has a clear agenda, creating militia. Look at Iraq. Iran controlled Iraq since after the war. Has they built any normal state there? Is there any normal services available to the Iraqi people? Who is the most people in power? This radical group who run the country, not a normal state. For this reason, Iran has to disappear as this kind of face, that radical group using religious revolution to expand in the region. Has to stop. We has to become like the rest of the world in Europe. They used to each country fight with each other. In the end, they become a united European Union. I'm not gonna say it has to happen that in the Middle East, but at least to witness each national state run itself in a way to look after its citizens rather than getting involved in each other's and spreading the hatred and spreading as well radicalization, and at the same time stopping the normal life to happen. All what we need, we have all the resources, we have the natural resources, human resources, the geographic location that would make the Middle East is the biggest hub in the world. And I believe many countries in the GCC, UAE, Saudi Arabia are thinking about making the Middle East, the wider Middle East, in prosperous, stable development. All that it's the aim of each Arab citizen in the region would like to see that happening. To see that happening, we have to put a limit to the Iranian.
You've mentioned over and over again that the coordination between Israel and other Arab nations in the region is crucial to rise up against Iran. I'm curious, though, if that perspective is as popular among Arab voices here in the region.
It's getting more popular. And in terms of the public, when the people looking at they've seen Hezbollah was controlling the aspect of the life of Lebanese, Syrian, and other countries. When they see Israel getting involved in a war and focusing on getting rid of these radicals, more and more people getting away from the voices of radicals and looking at the future. They believe that the peace, the prosperity, the stability, all connected together. We can't expect that we will create a prosperous region without creating stability. And without peace, we can't create stability. There is a connection within this kind of three figures, the three aspects of development in the region. Yes, I believe, more and more the normal people thinking of that, the importance of peace. And as well, if we look at the changes happening in GCC countries. If you look at Saudi Arabia in the last 7 years, they have managed to create a big project of development. This has become an example. Probably this example threatened Iran, because Iran always used to focus on militia, never focused on development. Since Saudi Arabia is thinking of development, many Iranian people, they start telling to their regime, oh, look, our neighboring country, they are building their countries, offering services to their citizens, making the life more flexible and more normal, more entertainment available. All that, this is a change of example of running the region. For that reason, I believe many more and more want to follow the same example. And that requires really stability. And this is what requires a grand deal of peace in the region.
When we're looking at the potential peace deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia, which was very much on the table before October 7th, I want to get your assessment on how realistic and how close we are to such a deal, given the war in Gaza right now.
It is, I think it's still close. Probably is not being well spoken publicly now because of the wars. Obviously, when there is a wars, what happened, Hamas and Iran, when they decided to launch the war, to stop such a grand peace deal in the region. It's gonna happen again. This talk is gonna be resuming again and again, because simply at the end of the day, after each war, has to happen some kind of political agreement, some kind of deal in the region. And at the end of the day, Saudi Arabia is focusing on one of the figures is important for them is to have a deal between the Palestinian and Israeli, how they can live next to each other, what type of two states can be created, All that is one of the main demand for the Saudi, because the Saudi as well, they want to have like a sustainable peace deal. They don't want like after a few months some group of militia appearing and say and use again the Palestinian case to say, oh, there is a war between the Palestinian and Israeli. Sort of peace between the Israeli and the Palestinian will make it even more and more attractive to create a grand deal everywhere. We have to take in consideration Hamas does not represent the Palestinian. Hamas is a radical group, has to be stopped getting involved, not militarily, but as well politically. Any peace in the region requires to have a normal representative of the Palestinian people, not radical group.
Ghassan Ibrahim, founder of Global Arab Network, thank you very much for providing us your insight today and giving us some of the perspectives that are being discussed in the Middle East. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.